O Lord, we thank you that we can be saved through by grace through faith and not by works, O Lord. Oh, we're so grateful for that, Lord. And Lord, we're also thankful that preacher is here with us tonight. Give him the strength, the wisdom, and the knowledge to preach your word tonight, and be with us in this whole service and those who are online. And we give you all the praise and glory. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Now for the 4-minute video of Sister Isa and her ministry in the Philippines.
I want to know you, Lord. You are a great big God. I'm young and do not know a lot. Come and be my own. I want to love you more, giving you my life and all. You died for me, you sacrificed. I won't forget you, Lord.
Number now. That young lady sure is reaching a lot of lives, and we're glad to be able to help her, and glad for that film. And thank you, girls, for that song. Well, we expected snow at 4 o'clock, but it didn't snow, and it hasn't snowed yet. It's raining, but the rain may freeze, and they say it's going to snow overnight and snow in the morning. So we'll wait and see what happens. And we're glad to have you here tonight. And I'm not going to preach a sermon. I'm not going to teach a sermon. I want to tell a story tonight. Tell you a story from the Old Testament. The title of my message is Rizpah. Well, you say, what's that? Well, I'll tell you during the story. Rizpah. I'm dedicating this to Danielle, because this is a message for a young lady. I'm dedicating it all to the girls. Boys can listen, and so can the others. But Rizpah. Now, this is a situation where you don't understand it unless you know the background. You have to have the background to understand this. And the background was 400 years before Rizpah. Joshua had led the children of Israel after Moses died into the land that had been promised them. He's a military genius, and they were taking everything in their path. They were taking the land that God had given them. They were taking every city. They were really on the move. Joshua got up one morning. There was a group of people there. They had old sacks on their mules that were worn and tore. Their shoes were worn out. Their clothes were ragged and dirty and dusty. And they gave the appearance and said, "We have come from a long way." And in so many words, we know how you're conquering all this land. We want to make a covenant of peace. We want you to promise not to destroy us. We have traveled far to make a covenant of peace. And Joshua said, right, we promise, we make a covenant. We'll never destroy your cities. We'll never injure your people. Covenant of peace. 3 days later, Joshua finds out those people aren't from afar. They're just down over the mountain at Gibeah, and they came and gave the appearance and tricked him into a covenant. And he kept it. He let them have their own cities. But since he was protecting them, they had to cut the firewood and carry water to the army and to the men. And they were protected. Girls, 400 years passed from that covenant over to Saul is king. And Saul is a fighter, and he's fighting the Amorites. And the Gibeonites that deceived Joshua are first cousins of the Amorites, part of those people. And when Saul went in, he paid no attention to anything. He slaughtered the Gibeonites and destroyed their cities and really did damage to them. All right? Saul gets killed. He's buried. David has become king. Girls, When a king in those days took over, they usually killed everybody in a family that was a threat to them, that might come back and try to gain the throne. And Joab did that to King Ahab. After Ahab was killed, he killed all the children for fear one of them would rise up and try to take Ahab's place. That's what kings did. But David, that followed Saul, had a generous heart and a good heart. He didn't rejoice when his enemy Saul was killed. He mourned. He praised him for what God had done with him. And he promised Jonathan, Saul's son, he would protect his family. And David treated the people right. And he didn't like it when Joab killed all those people. But David is king. Things have settled down. He's got peace. And here come some people, girls. Who are they? Gibeonites from Gibeah. What do they want? David, you're a just man. We want atonement for Saul breaking the covenant of peace and killing our people. We want payment. And there was a famine in the land. It hadn't rained for 3 years. David went to God. Why are we having a famine? God said, because Saul killed those people that you made a covenant of peace with. Saul killed them. You got a famine because of Saul shedding blood of a covenant. So David, wanting it to rain and wanting to atone to the Gibeonites for the promise broken. So what do you want? You want money? No, we don't want money. You want position? No. What do you want? We want 7 sons of Saul to hang up on a tree, to hang up. And David, because a religious covenant had been broken, said, all right. And David and his men went to get 7 descendants of Saul, grandsons probably. We got 7 and brought them. And that's where our message tonight starts, with Rizpah, because Rizpah was one of Saul's wives, and David knocked on her door and took her 2 sons to let the Gibeonites hang them on a tree. All right. The story is in 1 Samuel 21. And here we go. There was a famine in the days of David. 3 years, year after year. And David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered, it's for Saul and the bloody house, because he slew the Gibeonites. That's why there's a famine. Saul killed the Gibeonites. David, next. The king called, David, the king, called the Gibeonites and said unto them, now the Gibeonites were not of the children of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. And the children of Israel had sworn unto them, and Saul sought to slay them in his zeal to the children of Israel and Judah. Next. Therefore David said unto the Gibeonites, what shall I do for you? And wherewith shall I make the atonement, that ye may bless the inheritance of the Lord? What can I do for you? And the Gibeonites said, we will have no silver or gold of Saul, nor of his house, neither for us shalt thou kill any man in Israel. And he said, what ye shall say, that will I do for you. Next. And they answered the king, the man that consumed us and that devised against us that we should be destroyed from remaining in any of the coast of Israel. Next. Let 7 men of his sons or grandsons be delivered unto us, and we will hang them unto the Lord in Gibeah, whom the Lord did choose. And the king said, I will give them. I will give you the grandsons of Saul. 7. He went and got them. One house was Rizpah. She had 2 sons she loved. David took them. And 5 others. And gave them to the Gibeonites. The Gibeonites hanged them. Next. King David spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because the Lord's oath has been between him and David and Jonathan, the son of Saul, that he would protect them. Next. But the king took the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Allah, whom she bare unto Saul, Armoni and Mephibosheth, and the 5 sons of Michal, the daughter of Saul, whom she brought up for Adriel, the son of Breziah, and Maholathite. He took 7 men, all grandsons of Saul, in that day called sons of Saul, delivered them to the Gibeonites. They hanged them in a hill before the Lord, and they fell, all 7 together, and were put to death in the days of harvest, in the first days of barley harvest. All right? And Rizpah. Here's Rizpah. You girls, Rizpah, the daughter of Allah, took sackcloth and spread it for her upon the rock. She went down from where she was living to Gibeah, went up on that barren hillside where they hanged those 7 men. She went up there, and near to her 2 sons were rocks close together. She put a covering from one rock to another and made a sort of a tent. And she got in there, right close to her sons, and spread it upon the rock for the beginning of harvest until the water dropped. That was summer. Harvest was in the spring, and it began to rain at the end of summer. She spent all summer there. and suffered neither the birds of the air. She stayed in that covering. And when a bird came down to that decaying body of her son, shoo, she'd go out and drive them away. Drive away the birds that would pick at a decaying body. And at night, when the jackals and lions prowled around looking for food, she'd take a torch and go out and wave it and drive those. All summer she fought and protected her sons in the daytime from birds, at night from the jackals and beasts. All summer. That woman defended her two boys, defended their dead bodies day and night, all summer. David heard. They said, have you heard about Rizpah and her sons? No. She lives down there with their bodies. She protects them from birds and from beasts. David went down. He went down to see Rizpah. And Rizpah there was driving birds away, beasts. David to his men, take those bodies down, take them for decent burial, and we'll bury them in the sepulcher of their grandfather, Kish, father of Saul. We'll bury them in his sepulcher. They'll be buried, those two boys, with their grandfather. And David did it. And it began to rain. And the flood came of water. God entreated the land. What's the story? Rizpah, showing a mother's love, a mother's dedication to defend not only her living sons, but sons that had been hanged. She defended them night and day. Rizpah. Girls, remember that name. A few years from now, you'll be a mother. Your children won't be dead, but you need to protect them. In this day and age, mothers need to protect their children. Needs to protect them from the teaching of evolution, from all this transsexual thing and all of that. They need to be protected that. And a mother sit down and tell them word for word why it's wrong. And defend and fight for their children. If you don't, girls, the world will take them from you. And the devil will take them if you don't fight for them. Now, that's the story. But in England, there was a brilliant British poet, Rudyard Kipling. He wrote poetry, sometimes quoted at funerals. Let there be no mourning of the bar when I put out to sea. Kipling wrote that. He's a Christian. Kipling's greatest poem is entitled Rizpah. He wrote a poem, Rizpah. But it's not about this account. It's the account of a woman in England. Her son and another boy robbed the mail on a mail train. They were taken to court, found guilty, and sentenced to death. This mother, her son, was in the prison cell. Rizpah. She went to see him. While she was there, they came and took him to the gallows to hang him. And as she was standing there where she had been visiting with them, they took him down the hall and he yelled, "Mother, oh mother!" And they hanged him. The woman went home night and day. All she heard was, "Mother, oh mother, mother, oh mother." She lost her mind. They put her in a mental institution. Mother, mother. But she got better. And she got out. And she went home. And when she got home, she was better mentally. Every night, she got up and went to where they hanged her son and buried him. She dug up the dirt and got a bone of his body and carried it to the Anglican cemetery and buried it. She, at that time being an Anglican believer, looked upon that cemetery as holy ground. Girls, night after night, she went back until she got every bone of that boy's body and carried it to the cemetery and buried it in what she called holy ground. Kipling wrote a poem, Rizpah, Wizpah, most famous poem he ever wrote. I scratched down a couple of verses, hard for me to read because my hand shakes. Wailing, 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 the wind over land and sea, and Willie's voice in the winds. Oh, mother, come out to me. Kipling wrote that in his poem, Rizpah. If I were hanged on the highest tree, mother of mine, oh, mother of mine, I know whose love would follow me still. Mother of mine, oh, mother of mine. The love of a mother, Kipling wrote the poem. Put that incident in England with Rizpah, and it became his most famous poem, Rizpah, that went out night after night and fought the beast off her son's body, and in the daytime fought away the birds, and lived there with sackcloth over her head to protect the two sons that she loved. She loved. And Kipling wrote a song about her. And a mother's love. There's nothing like it in the world. A mother's love. I used to feel her hand on my forehead at 2 o'clock in the morning when I was sick with the flu. I'd feel her hand. And so much she did for me. Washed my clothes. Always had supper ready. When I came home from basketball practice, she'd have it ready. Always concerned. Nothing like a mother's love. Men who have lost their good mothers and they're in heaven, most of them would like to have their mother back for half an hour or 10 minutes to express their gratitude for what she's done. Girls, there's a message. You remember Rizpah, when this little preacher's in the grave, and you're married, children, you remember Rizpah, and go back and read that passage of a woman that showed her love for her sons like no other story in the Bible. Rizpah. All right. That's all we'll have time for tonight. Let you get home early before the water freezes or the snow comes. And let you students make it all the way back to the dormitory. In all this terrible winter weather, you can make it back to the dormitory. And tomorrow, we'll be here for chapel. 11 or 11:30, I don't know which. All right. That concludes. Thank you online for being with us. And God bless you. Goodbye.